So, yesterday we got some pretty interesting news. News I thought I probably wouldn't have heard in a very long time, but here we are. Yesterday, via Bloomberg, there was the announcement that Sega is reportedly going to reboot not only Crazy Taxi, but Jet Set Radio as part of their new super game initiative thing, where they're trying to create games with bigger communities and to hopefully get a lot of revenue from this later. Sort of follow a bit of what Fortnite is doing, with Epic Games, something close to that. Yesterday, this definitely caused quite a stir in the community, and I saw a lot of mixed feelings from a bunch of people. Me, I've been sitting on it, thinking about it, like how I feel about it, and I think it would be best if I read through the article just to explain it before I give my initial thoughts, because I definitely have a lot to say on this, and I don't got a script for this, so I'm just gonna go with whatever is on my mind. So the article reads that Sega Sammy Holdings Incorporated is developing big budget reboots of its Dreamcast games Crazy Taxi and Jet Set Radio as it taps its back catalog in search of global hits like Epic Games' Fortnite, according to people familiar with its plans. The two titles would be the first entries in Sega's Super Game Initiative, which the company announced a year ago as an effort to develop recurring revenue sources and build online communities around its software portfolio. Fortnite has become the role model for such games. Free to play, it's available across platforms, hosts large multiplayer contests, and includes extras like vehicles, constructions, and social events on top of the usual combat, spurring players with purchases of in-game items. Crazy Taxi, alongside Jet Set Radio and Sega's annual report a year ago, were on the list of intellectual properties assets that Sega wanted to recapitalize by bringing them up to date. Both new games are in the early stages of creation and could still be canceled, the people says. A Sega spokesperson said the company has no comment to make at the present time. So, that's a lot to take in. Potential reboots for Crazy Taxi and Jet Set Radio. Now, I don't have many thoughts on Crazy Taxi because I didn't play it like an extensive amount. I had a lot of fun with the game when I played it, and I think it's great. But the focus here for me is definitely Jet Set Radio. That is the one where I was just like, wait a minute, what? When I first saw the article popped up and I read it, I said, this is a lie. I said this was a lie because there was no way that now suddenly Sega wants to bring back Jet Set Radio. Jet Set Radio, after they've completely ignored Jet Set Radio Future's 20th anniversary, and they haven't acknowledged Jet Set Radio much besides the cameos here and there again and again. I just thought, there's no way they're going to be making a new Jet Set Radio game. I didn't want to believe it. And even after reading this, I still don't believe that Sega would do this. And, they're in the early stages, so they could be canceled. This could probably still not happen. But in the off chance that we might get a new Jet Set Radio game, I have a hard time being excited. I am more concerned than anything. Especially when they commented about Fortnite. Now, I have nothing against Fortnite. Even though I personally don't like the game, I more so don't really like Epic Games and their practices, especially with the Epic Games store. And you know, the idea of a free-to-play Jet Set Radio game, I don't have an issue with that at all. But there is one thing I am definitely afraid of: microtransactions. Microtransactions for Jet Set Radio, I wouldn't feel too comfortable with something like that. And the last game that I've had that had microtransactions in it was Crash Team Racing Nitro Fuel. Now, that game, when it first came out, it didn't have the microtransactions in it, you know? You could just play the game normally to earn currency. It was a long and tedious grind sometimes, but it was okay, you know? I mean, the online wasn't stable, but you know, getting currency wasn't like super hard, because as long as I was playing online, I was still able to get the rewards, at least the really good rewards. But then later, Activision added the microtransactions. So if anyone wanted to, they could spend real life money for in-game currency, so they can get through the grind faster and just get all of the stuff they wanted. And it's very, very scummy. And I don't blame Beanox for this. I mostly blame Activision for their scummy practices. And then again, it's Activision, so I can't be surprised. I don't want to imagine something like that for Jet Set Radio. Like paying real money to buy in-game currency for something like graffiti or various music tracks or even costumes. And while, you know, I'm usually never opposed to buy costumes, I would rather, you know, be able to unlock these things normally. What happened to just unlocking things by just playing the game regularly? And I think the issue also stems from, like, even when you try to play the game normally, the game is built in such a way that the grind is so obnoxious that you get so little for just trying to play the game normally. And for me, that's frustrating. That could be a potential problem if this new Jet Set Radio game were to happen, and that's gonna suck. I mean, seeing the stuff that Fortnite can do with all of its modes and stuff, like, it has so many stuff you can do in that game. And while I think that's cool, I'm not vibing with the microtransactions in that game either. And I don't want the same thing happening for something like Jet Set Radio. That's whack. Even more concerning that Sega has been vaguely addressing that NFTs are the future of gaming, and they've been planning on wanting to experiment with NFTs. They've backed out a little bit, but you know, sometimes they always just go back on the word and they say maybe. And if NFTs were to make their way into Jet Set Radio, I'm definitely not supporting that. That pretty much goes against everything that Jet Set Radio has been trying to tell you narratively about creativity and expression and freedom. And NFTs are anything far from creative, and they're absolute scams, and they're just not worth it. They're very scummy with how they work, and I am a huge hater of NFTs, and if that happens in Jet Set Radio, that's going against what the game stands for, and I am definitely not going to support something like that. Another thing that's really bothering me personally is that if they decide to reboot Jet Set Radio, that means once again Jet Set Radio Future is going to be ignored once again, never acknowledged, and they're gonna drop everything that was established in Future, not build up on it, and just build something based off the original game. And that really frustrates me, because Jet Set Radio Future did a lot of great things. Despite how rushed the game was in its development, it did a lot of amazing things, especially with its narrative and characters. Like, all the dialogue options with the GGs is phenomenal, and it's amazing how much detail they put into those dialogues. And they didn't have to, but they did, and it made the characters feel more alive. Like, the one thing that I really love about Jet Set Radio Future is that I can talk to these characters and I get to know more about them and how they're feeling about situations, and I love that stuff. That's like the best part about Future for me. And if I wanted to play a Jet Set Radio game with no personality, I would really just play the OG game. And this is no like knock on the OG game, because I do love the OG game. And I don't mean like it doesn't have personality where it's like a lifeless game, but like I mean more so it has no personality with its characters. And you know, I can't get attached much to the characters in the OG game like I can with Future. And you know, that's all in part because, you know, they feel more like characters in Future because of the dialogue options they have and the fact that you can talk to these characters. You know, I want more of that. And I fear that a reboot is going to completely throw that away. Like, not even counting, I'm not even thinking about the gameplay right now, but just the stuff with the storytelling and the character development and stuff. That's the thing that's gonna get ignored. And I don't want to see characters like Jazz and Clutch and Rappin' 99 and the Immortals and Doom Riders. I think, you know, those are cool characters to me. And I mean, they're already forgotten by the community because, you know, the Jet Set Radio community likes to have more focus on the original game. You know, they have more of an attachment of the original game, and then Future is already, while it does get acknowledged here and there, it's definitely not to the same amount as the original game. And that's saddening because I really think Future has so much to offer. It has a lot to offer, you know? And I think it just adds more to the already colorful and great world that Jet Set Radio has, but not a lot of people, you know, want to do stuff for Future in particular. And that's just frustrating to me as someone who did grow up with Jet Set Radio Future. I want to see, you know, more of the Future characters. I want to see more of the Future designs compared to the original, you know? I just want to see more love for Jet Set Radio Future. And I don't want that game to be forgotten, you know? I think it deserves to be just as acknowledged as the original game. But unfortunately, since we're definitely not getting a re-release anytime soon, and now with the announcement of this potential reboot, Jet Set Radio once again is just going to be ignored, and that is depressing for me. And just to move aside Jet Set Radio real quick, I wanted to just quickly talk about Bomb Rush Cyberfunk. That's gonna be out pretty soon, right? Maybe in the summer, but who knows? But that's gonna be coming out like real soon. And the Jet Set Radio community is very excited for that game. You know, it's gonna be the Jet Set Radio game that they've been longing for so long, a spiritual successor. You know, if Sega is not gonna bother to revive Jet Set Radio, then Team Reptile has their own Jet Set Radio like game to try, and you know, people are excited about it. But it would seem that Team Reptile is not a fan of their game being compared to Jet Set Radio, which is strange because I mean the inspiration is pretty obvious just from its style and look, aesthetic, and character design. And hell, you have a Hideki Naganuma doing the soundtrack. I mean, how is it hard not to think about Jet Set Radio, you know? But I don't think Team Reptile is a fan of such statements, and you know, they believe that their fans wouldn't recognize something like Jet Set Radio because this is a very niche franchise, which to me is very disrespectful to say. Very disrespectful, because especially if you show anyone who knows about Jet Set Radio Bomb Rush Cyberfunk, and they're probably gonna look at it and be like, oh, this is just like Jet Set Radio. You know, your fans, like the majority of the fans looking forward to Bomb Rush Cyberfunk are Jet Set Radio fans, and the audience that's most likely going to buy Bomb Rush Cyberfunk are Jet Set Radio fans, you know? So I don't think that's very kind and fair to say that, you know, to treat Jet Set Radio as some sort of like just forgotten game. Well, it is forgotten, but you can't say like Jet Set Radio wasn't an inspiration for Bomb Rush Cyberfunk to happen. And I've already seen people waiting for Bomb Rush Cyberfunk being hyped for already dissing on Jet Set Radio and how BRC is gonna be like super fantastic and stuff. And you know what? I hope it is. You know, I'm not preying on the game's downfall, but you know, they wanted to like triumph over Jet Set Radio because Jet Set Radio is an old game and stuff. And you know what? I'm just like, whatever, I guess. You know what? Believe what you want. It's kind of ridiculous, but go ahead, believe what you want. And I don't vibe with that. I've been very hesitant with Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, especially, you know, we've gotten like very few trailers of the game, and to this day I still don't really know what's even in the game or what the game is really about. Like, what's the point of it? What is the goal here? There's still no like central goal of what Bomb Rush Cyberfunk is or what you do in the game. I would at least hope that some information on it would come out soon, but no, we haven't gotten anything about it. The last thing about Bomb Rush Cyberfunk was the style trailer, and you know, that was cool to look at, but I was watching it and I'm just like, I still don't know what's the whole point of the game. And that's what's really bothering me right now, because I still don't know like what's supposed to be the goal here. So I'm going to be very skeptical about it, but just the recent stuff with their thoughts on people comparing their game to Jet Set Radio, and then, you know, those very vocal minority, you know, dissing on Jet Set Radio. I'm just going to wait till the game releases a little bit, because buying games day one is it's pretty whack nowadays. So I expect that game to not have the most stable of releases, but I'll wait till that game comes out before I buy it, and if it turns out to be good, I'll get it, you know? I'll get it, I'll play it, I'll enjoy it, and, you know, it's going to remind me of Jet Set Radio whether they like it or not, you know? So yeah, that's all I have to say about the whole Jet Set Radio reboot news. This was just something I needed to get out of my chest, because I've just been thinking about it since yesterday, and I figured, you know, making a video like this to get my thoughts out would be helpful. To make the long story short, I'm very pessimistic about this reboot happening. I don't believe it's gonna happen for a second. Not at all. I don't think Sega still even cares about Jet Set Radio in the slightest, and they're only just gonna use them for like cheap references and stuff like that. So I'm not excited. I'm not getting my hopes up. I still don't believe that something like that is going to happen. So I'm just going to completely ignore it for the time being and just go on. And if it does turn out to happen, well then I hope development goes smooth and whatever practices they go along with is not the most scummy thing in the world. But I'm still on the boat that Jet Set Radio future is still rather dormant and dire, and it would just continue to be forgotten in Sega's history of franchises, you know? I mean, I wish for a better future for Jet Set Radio, but honestly, with how things are looking now, I don't think that would be too likely for it to come back.